Hello. In this video, I will be addressing the concept of interpreting barometric pressure on the weather station model. Okay, so the first thing that you want to look at here is how do we go about interpreting barometric pressure. To do so, we have to know where it actually occurs. So let me go ahead and get my pen ready here. And whenever you look at barometric pressure, the barometric pressure is found up in this area. It's on the upper right-hand corner of the weather station model. Now, some things that you need to understand about interpreting the barometric pressure. First of all, this is going to be in the unit of millibars. Okay, so this is not in the inches of mercury, it is in the unit of millibars. Now, whenever you start looking at this, there's some basic rules you need to know. The number one rule is if this number is less than 499, that means that you are going to put a 10 in front of this value. So this becomes 1, 0, and then 196. Okay? If that number is greater than 499, then you're going to actually put a 9 in front of it. So this one becomes 9973. Now the last thing that you have to remember here is you're going to go ahead and put the decimal point in before the last number. So this is actually 1019.6 millibars, and this is 997.3 millibars. Now, whenever you start looking at these values, the one thing that you want to kind of focus on, and it's not always the case, it's kind of just like a general rule of thumb. You have to remember that 1013.25 is kind of like the perfect day, right? That is the perfect standard barometric pressure. And so by looking at this, you want to compare all of these to that number. Well, you see that 1019.6 is much higher than 1013.25. So these are generally the conditions that are under a high pressure system, which means that, it's going to be kind of nice weather because higher pressure indicates nicer weather. Well, you notice that 997 is significantly below 1013.25, and that's going to indicate a lower pressure, and you can look at this by looking at the cloud cover, which is found in here. Now, you can see that this is 75% cloud cover, so there's all kinds of other variables, so we're just focusing on the pressure aspect right now, but you can kind of use that as a general rule of thumb. So even though you have some clouds, you don't worry about that. This is still under a high pressure system because we may have something else going on that's actually generating this cloud cover. Okay? So that's what you're basically looking at. Now, if you want to convert these into inches of mercury, what you need to do is you need to basically just say, okay, I've got to convert 1019.25, divide this by 29.92 because that's what it is in inches of mercury, 29.92, and then you end up with something, I believe it's like 33.86. So now what you're going to do here is you're going to divide by 33.86, and that will give you your answer in inches of mercury. Now, why are they different? Inches of mercury are what you'll tend to find reported like on if you're watching the weather, on your local station, whatever it be, whereas meteorologists like to use the millibar as their unit of measurement whenever they're describing it. And so that's how you go about interpreting and actually plotting it. So if I were to ask you, now, we'll just cover it right now. Let's just say, for example, if I said we had a barometric pressure of 1006 millibars. Well, here's the thing that you have to remember. You're going to take that off, and we're always going to have a decimal point. So if you were plotting 1006 millibars on this, that would actually be plotted as 060. Okay? And so that's what you're looking at. And because 060 is below the number 499, that's why you would put a 10 in front of it. But so in other words, whenever you do this, always realize you're always going to have to presume the decimal point. You've always got to have the decimal point accounted for whenever you're plotting this. So notice there's no decimal points in this plot up here. Notice there's no decimal points in this one whatsoever. It would go right there and right there, but it is not plotted whenever you're doing the weather station model. So hopefully this kind of explains to you how you use barometric pressure and how barometric pressure is actually interpreted as well as recorded on the weather station model. Again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to email me, as I will respond with either another video or I'll give you some resources to actually get some practice and understand how this works.